Hello and welcome back to Triple Crown Wargaming with me, the Duke, once again taking you through one of the phases in Warhammer the Old World, and today it is the combat phase. If you haven't checked them out already, I've already done videos on the strategy phase, the movement phase and the shooting phase. Go check them out first and then come back here and watch today's video where, like all the others, I'm just going to go mainly through the changes from 8th edition to the Old World. I'm not going to go through the whole phase. Like the rest of the phases though, we've got 4 sort of sub-phases, although they're not really sub-phases. It's just sort of 4 steps that you pick for each combat. So you pick one combat, resolve all the steps, go back, resolve them again, etc. No big changes there. First big change we have though is this concept of the fighting rank. So this is essentially the front rank, but generally supporting attacks are not a thing. You will only ever make attacks with your front rank unless you have a weapon that gives you a fight an extra rank special rule, or a particular special rule that allows you to make supporting attacks. But generally, they're not a thing. It's just the front rank. So the first big change of many, to be fair, in the combat phase. How many attacks you can make also depends on where you are in that fighting rank. So if you're in base contact, you can make as many attacks as you've got. However, if you are not in base contact, you're still in the fighting rank, but you're not in base contact, you can only ever make 1 attack, no matter how many you've got. And that goes for supporting attacks as well. I touched on this in the movement video, so check that out if you haven't seen it already. Chargers get an initiative bonus, which will go after, or will sort of come into effect after rules like Strikes Last, which will make you strike at initiative 1, you then charge, get an extra 3 or 4 in some cases, initiative, and then you'll be striking at initiative 4 or 5. So it makes things like great weapons, I think, much more palatable, much better, generally. Fallen Warriors and stepping forward. So step up is gone. There is no step up anymore. You're not guaranteed for that front rank to fight as long as you've got the models left. Those are the models that die first. If I attack before you at a higher initiative, I kill your front rank, and you haven't got a rule that says you make supporting attacks, that's it. No attacks for you. There is also, if we move on to... actually, I'll be moving on quite a bit, so I'll come back to that in a bit, thinking about it. But yeah, there's also a potential that I can get rid of your supporting attacks as well. If I kill enough models to wipe out your front rank and your second rank, then you don't make any supporting attacks. This stepping forward, if I do, like I said, step up is gone. So if I do kill your front rank, any model that steps up into that front rank doesn't then get to attack. However, if you can make supporting attacks and I only kill the front rank, the models that step up into the second rank can attack. Little bit sort of, pernickety. That's not really the word. I think I've made that word up. But a little bit detail-oriented. Let's go with that. But I think once people start playing it, once they've come across these things a few times, it'll make a lot more sense when you're playing the game. Divine attacks, if you're like this little fellow in the middle and you are in between 2 units, you have to direct your attacks against the unit you're closest to. If you're at equal distance, you can choose. And if you're in combat with 2 units like this chap, then you just choose who you want to fight. No big changes there. To hit table, big changes here. Well, the big change really is that you can now hit on 2s in combat. So if you are more than double the weapon skill of what you're fighting, then you hit on 2s. The rest of the hit chart is the same. If you are more than but not quite double, you hit on 3s. If you're equal to or less but more than half of the target's weapon skill, then you hit on 4s. If you are equal to up to half of the target's weapon skill, you hit on 4s. If they are more than double your weapon skill, then you hit on 5s. But no actual real changes other than the addition of hitting on 2s. The to wound table and armor saves I went through in the shooting phase video, yesterday's video, so go check that out if you want to see about all of the changes there. Like I've said, this stepping forwards and closing in, there's no step up. However, if some of your front rank is not in base contact, the models that aren't in base contact are the ones that are removed as casualties first. So if you do have multiple attacks on any models, you are more likely to get those multiple attacks rather than just the 1 attack that models not in base contact can give you. This is the excess casualties bit that I was talking about a moment ago. If I do enough wounds to remove the fighting rank and the models behind it, the rank behind it, or file if I'm in the flank, then that will reduce the number of support attacks. I think a lot of people will miss this, to be honest. It's a little rule, it's sort of out of the way, not in the position I'd expect it to be in, to be honest. Although I could say that about a lot of the things in this rule, but to be fair, but that's a whole nother video. Yeah, I think a lot of people will miss this, but quite an important one, I think. Combat result generally is very much the same. Get a point for every wound you do, rank bonus, etc. The difference with rank bonus, though, in the old world, is that the maximum amount of rank bonus you can be given is dependent on your unit type. So it's not just infantry and cavalry and things like that, or it's not just 3 for everyone. It's if you are in a close order formation. Sorry, it's not unit type at all, it's formation. Got that one wrong, apologies. If you are in close order formation, you can get 2, unless you have a special rule that says otherwise. And there are other formations which also limit the amount. I think Horde is the rule that allows you to claim an extra rank bonus. I think, off the top of my head, that's what the Horde rule does. So no more is it those 10 wide units. Horde rule just lets you claim an additional rank bonus. But generally, you can only claim 2 rather than 3. Still get bonuses for standards, battle standards, flanks and rears, and the high ground, which the Lawmaster will be pleased about. Overkill is still maxed at 5, but it's 1 per excess wound you do. And then you've got these other bonuses like close order, like I just mentioned. Just being in close order formation gives you an extra 1. Lance formation for the Bretonians, that gives you an extra 1 as well. All of this pretty much is what we've just been over. You only get the maximum rank bonus, you don't get it per unit. Same with standards. If you've got multiple units in the same combat, you only get 1 standard. The break test, though, this is probably the single biggest change in, well, maybe outside of Magic not being its own phase, this is probably the single biggest change in the game. I would say certainly the biggest change in the combat phase. So I've thought a lot about how I can explain this, about how other people have already explained it on their videos, and I agree with what a lot of people have said. It's difficult to explain in words, but once you sort of do it in the game, I think a lot of people, it will just click. But I will do my best. I will try and explain it. So there are 3 results now. If you lose combat, you have to take a break test. There are effectively 3 different results. Either you give ground, which is the best result, or you fall back in good order, the next best result, or you just break and flee, obviously the worst result. So if you roll over your unmodified leadership, you break and flee. That's probably the easiest one. If you roll under your modified leadership, and by modified I mean, and unmodified to be fair, I mean modified by the combat result. If you roll under your modified leadership, then you give ground. And give ground is just you push yourself away basically 2 inches. You stay in exactly the same formation, facing the same way. I touched on this in the movement video as well. You don't turn at all, you just move 2 inches away. And like you can see in this little diagram, if you're engaged on 2 facings, you go sort of diagonally away from both. If you roll over your modified leadership, but under your unmodified leadership, equal to or under, I should say, your unmodified leadership, then you fall back in good order. And again, I touched on this in the movement article as well. This is essentially a flee, but the difference is you roll 2d6 and pick the highest. You don't go the distance of both dice added together, and you automatically rally at the end of it. So to try and put that into an example, into a little bit of perspective for a lot of you, if I have a unit that is leadership 8, but I lost the combat by 3, if I roll a 5 or below, I give ground, because that is equal to or below my modified leadership. If I roll a 6, a 7, or an 8, I fall back in good order, because that is above my modified leadership, but equal to or below my unmodified leadership. And if I roll a 9 or higher, I break and flee, because that's over my unmodified leadership. Hopefully that makes a lot of sense to you guys. But like I said, once you start playing the game, once you've sort of done this a few times, I'm sure it will just be much easier to get your head around. It was for me, certainly. Now, whichever result, the give ground, the fall back in good order, or the break and flee, the victor of the combat gets the choice to either restrain and reform, which is just a leadership test. If you pass it, you stay where you are and you can pivot on the spot and you can reform your ranks as well. Or you can either follow up or pursue, depending on the result that your opponent got. So if they gave ground, then you just follow up. You simply move up 2 inches back into base contact. There is a note here. Before you make a follow-up move, you can change your facing by performing a free turn maneuver. Now, I went over turn maneuvers in the movement video, so go check that out about exactly what they are. But to be honest, I can't think of a time, of a scenario, really, where you would turn 90 degrees, because it's not up to 90. It's specifically a turn maneuver of 90 degrees, because each model turns on the spot. You don't just spin the unit. So I can't think of a time where you would do that and still be able to hit the unit that just gave ground. I'm sure there is some niche scenario where it happens, but in my head, I just can't think of it. So I don't really understand this part of it. I'm sure in a game, some point it'll come up and I'll be like, now I can do it. This is why they put it in. At the moment, though, that's not happened. So I really don't understand that bit of it. If, however, they fell back in good order or broke and fled, then the victor can pursue them. So if to make a pursue move, it's pretty standard. You just roll 2d6. That's how far you move. If you completely destroy a unit as well, you can overrun. Now, crucially, there is no caveat here on the overrun to say that this must be on a turn that you charged. So by the looks of it, or that you even have to have charged at all. So by the looks of it, if someone charges into my unit, I wipe them out. They roll really bad, whatever. I wipe them out. That turn, subsequent turn, I can then make an overrun move. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. I feel like that will be FAQ'd probably reasonably quickly. I feel like it will probably be FAQ'd by a lot of tournament packs as well. I could see that making its way into our pack. I understand the pursuit move. I absolutely get that. If you want to chase an enemy, of course you should be able to do that. But an overrun, if I destroy them, I shouldn't do unless I've just charged into them. Yeah, very strange. Obviously, a couple of points where you can't follow up or pursue if you're still engaged with someone else, or if for whatever reason you're unable to move because of other units or terrain is in your way. Now, if they gave ground or fell back in good order, that's what it's called, then there are sort of it, and you move back into contact with them, either with the follow-up or the pursuit. It works in a couple of different ways. So if they gave ground and you just follow up, you almost treat it as the same combat. So you don't get any bonuses to your initiative for charging or anything like that. You just move into them. If they fell back in good order, the pursuit counts as a charge. So as long as you moved 3 inches or more, you would get that extra initiative. Well, as long as you moved an inch or more, you would get the extra initiative for charging up to 3 or 4 if you're in the flank. So it is much better if the opponent falls back in good order rather than give ground, and because you get that initiative bonus. If you pursue into an obstacle, you stop an inch away, or another friendly unit, you stop an inch away, no real changes there. If you pursue off the battlefield, you just come on next turn in your compulsory moves phase. Again, no changes there. If you pursue into another enemy, then if it's fleeing, you just hit them, immediately destroy them, and get a reform. Attempt to reform. It's a leadership test. If you pass the test, you can reform. That's quite a big change as well. One I like, to be fair, it never made sense to me that you could pursue someone towards a fleeing unit. You would roll enough to hit them, but then just do nothing. Didn't like that. So I do like that change. And then if you pursue into a new or a non-fleeing enemy, it's a new combat. If it hasn't been fought that turn and they're already in combat with someone else, then you get to fight again. Big changes to combat so far then, mainly around that break test. There's another step where you can cast some spells in combat. So the assailment spells, these are done at the wizard's initiative, essentially when he's chosen to fight. or she is chosen to fight, you would then do their assailment spells. It does have a little distinction. Templates that are, or assailment spells that use templates rather, they're distributed among the rear ranks of the enemy, so they don't reduce the number of models in the fighting rank. So I suppose they thought that was a bit too good. Otherwise, no real big changes here. If your weapon skill 0, you're automatically hit and you can't hit anyone, which is quite funny, but, you know, very rarely happens, but it's funny when it does. Again, I touched on this in the movement video, so go check that out for sort of a bit of a more in-depth look at it. But essentially, if a quarter or more of your models are in difficult terrain at the start of the combat phase, then you count as disrupted. You can't get a rank bonus. Both dangerous terrain and woods always class as difficult terrain. Open ground and hills are open ground, no changes there. Impassable terrain, you just sort of, well, if you can't align because of impassable terrain, if you can make contact but can't align because of impassable terrain, then the charging unit becomes disrupted. Again, not being able to claim that rank bonus. Linear obstacles, sort of hedges, fences, if they're less than 2 inches tall, then and the charging unit or one of the units is sort of straddling that, then they also count as disrupted, no rank bonus. If it's defended, so if the unit that got charged is touching it in base contact with that low linear obstacle, then you effectively charge into that. I'm going to call it a wall. We all know what it is. It's a wall. You charge into that wall, and unless you have the flyer special rule, then you make a disordered charge, which means you don't get the initiative bonus. So it's a bit better for you to be defending an obstacle, which, you know, makes sense. High linear obstacles, which are tall walls, are just impassable. And then battlefield decoration, again, it just goes on to say you can fight around them normally, no penalty. They get in the way, just move them. And that is it. That is it for the combat phase. So the big one being, or change being, the break test here. That whole give ground, fall back in good order, or break and flee being the real big change. It's not just a hold or break situation. Combats are always fluid. They're just constantly moving around the battlefield, getting pushed and pulled different places. It's a little tricky to get used to, but like I say, once you're used to it, I'm sure it'd be much easier to get your head around. But let me know what you think of the changes to the break test and combat in general down below, and check back here tomorrow for the final video in this little series, which will be on Magic and the changes to Magic. But for now, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the little bell so we can let you know when tomorrow's video goes up. And yeah, I'll see you back here tomorrow.
Remember to tag your friends and like, subscribe and share. Then head over to triplecrownwargaming.com and become a Knight of the Realm today.
What are you doing, mate?
You alright?
Do it for Warhammer!